Good morning, everyone. It's Kevin here from Skywatcher, and welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been with us before, happy Friday and welcome back. So it's March, and with another, obviously with another month, we're talking about what's up in the sky for that particular month, and that's what we're going to be going over today. Of course, if you guys like what you see here at the What's Up Webcast, we really appreciate you being here. If you want to keep up with all the new episodes, we pretty much just locked in April, May, and June, so we're going to be posting all of those new episode topics up on the YouTube channel here pretty shortly. Once we have the nice graphics ready for those, we're going to post all those up here, and you will get emails from YouTube telling you, hey, here's all these new things that are scheduled and coming up. So if you want to stay up with what's going on here at the What's Up Webcast, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it, and then it'll keep you up to date with any new content and episodes coming up, as well as any new content we're going to post here on the YouTube channel. Anyway, we are working on new support videos about our products as well, so if you want to keep up with those, you'll also see that get posted, and all you have to do is subscribe to the channel there. If there's anything that you want us to cover, or you have any comments that you want to reach out to us about, go ahead and email us at support@skywatcherusa.com and just title it What's Up. We'll be happy to take a look at it and consider things for future episodes. So, again, thanks for being here, and we appreciate all of your support during our What's Up Webcast. So, again, it's March, third month of the year already. I'm not sure where the time goes, but again, we're in March. So let's get started and seeing what's up for the month and see what there is to view. So, of course, just like any other month, we're seeing the moon is the brightest object in the nighttime sky, and with that, the new moon for this month is actually coming up. It's next weekend. That's March 13th. So if you're looking to get out and do some deep sky viewing and explore those last efforts of getting really nice views of some of those popular wintertime objects, the March new moon, March 13th, is going to be the best time to do it. March is also generally the time the Meteor Marathon takes place. So if you're not familiar with the Meteor Marathon, you're probably familiar with the Meteor catalog. There's 110 objects in that catalog. Galaxies, nebulas, star clusters. There's one double star in the Meteor catalog. But generally in March, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the best time to do the Meteor Marathon, which allows you to see all or almost all 110 objects in one night. So that is something, if you're looking to do it, next weekend is probably the best weekend to do that. So some places might be still hosting Meteor Marathons, considering what's all going on in the world right now. But for the March new moon, it generally takes place on that weekend for most of those Meteor Marathon star parties. So just an FYI. That kind of takes us up to the dark sky weekend is the 13th and 14th, so that's going to be next weekend. So if you are planning an outing, you've probably already got it planned by now, honestly. But if you're looking to get out, capture some really nice images, or get your last really good views of some of those deep sky objects like Orion or the Horsehead or the Rosette or something like that, that would be the weekend to head on out to those nice dark clear skies and get a view before we start moving further into the springtime galaxy season. So next weekend, March 13th, March 14th, is your new moon weekend for the month. Now, of course, the other side of the coin there is the full moon. So the full moon is very late in the month, which is nice. March 28th is when that is. So you've got some time before the moon comes back up into the sky and really starts affecting stuff. But March 28th is going to be the full moon. And with that, the full moon for this month, as I said, the 28th, is known as the worm moon. Yes, that's correct. It comes from Captain Jonathan Carver. He was an explorer and writer in the 1700s here in the early Americas, out here in the U.S. He came up with the worm moon name. It kind of stuck because he noticed that's when a lot of the earthworms and a lot of the bugs and stuff like that would kind of come to life after a deep winter freeze, and we'd start moving into the springtime. So that's where this full moon gets kind of its weird, strange name. Now, there's some other names that are usually done. It depends on which, usually Native American tribe is where the full moon names come from a lot of the times. There's the sugar moon, the wind strong moon, and the sore eyes moon, depending on the region that tribe was in, is generally where those names originate from. So, for example, the sore eye moon, that obviously listed there on the screen, comes from the Dakota tribe, and they referred to that because the moon would reflect off of the snow there. They are further north. Would reflect off of the snow, so it would kind of hurt your eyes because everything would be so bright in the night. So that's kind of where the sore eyes moon comes from. You can always go to Farmer's Almanac. It gives you all the names and all the folklore behind the full moon names. So if you're doing outreach or something like what we're doing now, and you want to share some cool stuff with the full moon, that would be the one to check out. And that's where we get all that folklore from. So kind of cool. Now, planets. We're pretty much done with planet season. All the cool planets right now, not all of them, but the majority of the visual planets are up in the early morning, just before sunrise. I know this morning, I think Jupiter and Mercury, I might be wrong on that. Jupiter and one other planet was actually really close to each other this morning, but again, all those planets are found in the early morning right now. So there's not a lot to catch right now in the evening sky, unfortunately. There are a couple stragglers out there that you can still catch. Oh, I got a typo there. Sorry about that. Uranus and Mars are pretty much the only planets that are visible in the evening sky right now. Mars is naked eye visible. Uranus is naked eye if you're in a very dark sky and you know exactly what you're looking for. So Uranus. Uranus is high in the western sky just after sunset. Right now in the early part of the month, you can get it for most of the early to mid-evening before midnight, but it's going to be gone by about 10. But as March progresses, that's going to get lower and lower, and by the end of the month, you're not going to have a very good shot at observing Uranus at this time. We're pretty much getting to the end of the season there. So let me bring up our chart here, and let's get the time where it's not daytime. For those of you who might not know what this is Stellarium. This is a free software. You can download it online. Does all kinds of cool stuff, but I like using it just because it's quick and easy, and there's a lot of people who use it too. It does do telescope control. I've never tried it, so don't ask me how that all works. Let me bring up the constellations here. So this is the evening sky right now at about 8 o'clock p.m. Northern Hemisphere. And looking out to the west, you can see there's Uranus right over here. Right up here is where the planet Uranus actually is. Let me click on that so we can see it. There we go. About 8 o'clock this evening, if you're going out, Uranus is going to be right up here about, let's see, altitude 29 degrees altitude. So it is getting lower. I wouldn't even say high in the sky. It's kind of mid in the western sky right now. So that's where Uranus is. If you have a decent sized telescope, like a 5 or 6 inch telescope, you can catch Uranus as a little blue ball. I think it's kind of a fun one to look at because it's not one of the primary planets you hear of when you're observing through a telescope. Everyone usually wants to know about Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, and Mars are generally the set of planets that you generally are looking for. But Uranus is a fun one because it's so far out there but it's usually the last planet that looks like a planet easily. You can, with very little effort, you can make it look like a little spherical blue ball floating out there in space, where Neptune, which is no longer visible in the evening, it's too close to the sun right now, positioning, it's not actually close to the sun. That one takes a little bit more effort. It's much further away, and it's really hard to resolve it into more of a ball shape. So Uranus is actually probably the last planet that's really easy to get that planetary look to it. So go out and take a look at that. That is Uranus. Final that down. Now, Mars is visible right now. It's still easily naked eye. Mars will always be naked eye. It's nice and bright. It's higher in the western sky. It's actually trailing behind Uranus at the moment. It is moving away from us. Anybody who's been observing the red planet knows that it's progressively and quickly moved away from us since fall. It had its close approach back in fall of 2020. So right now it's not really in an ideal position. You're probably going to need a fair amount of magnification to blow it up a little bit to get some detail on it, but it is moving away from us at this point. So if you've got your first telescope or you've been trying to observe Mars, it's okay. It's not the telescope. It's just Mars is not in a good position any longer to get the best view of it. So it's not going to show like it did, or you may have read about at the end of 2020 back in August, September time frame, roughly, where it was nice and big and you could see ice caps and dark details and all that fun stuff. It's not in that position. You're going to have to wait until mid-2022 at this point before we get another nice closer approach. It won't be as big as it was last year, but you can still get a nice view of Mars right now. It just might not be as good as it used to be at the end of last year. Now, once again, I said Mars is kind of trailing Uranus right now. It's actually hanging up kind of high around 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock, at least where I am, roughly, you're at about 52 degrees altitude at this point. It's actually right next to the Pleiades right now. So its closest approach to the Pleiades was actually the other night. I think that was the third and fourth is when it was really at its best position for the Pleiades. But it's still up there right now, so obviously this is tonight. You can see it's still relatively close. Or there's the 6th. It's hanging up right around the Pleiades cluster right now, and makes for a pretty nice photo op, actually. Our friend Scott from Starizona shot this with his Evo Guide 50 ED, and I think it's the Starizona Field Flattener. I don't know what camera he was using. I didn't ask him, but this is Mars and the Pleiades from the other night. So if you're looking for kind of a cool photo op, might have to go try this myself, actually. This is a cool photo op that you can get right now with Mars and the Pleiades. If you've got a wide field optic, they're still close enough for you to get a nice image of them together, kind of a unique pairing to take a look at right now. So that's visible right now. Right after the sun goes down, you can get a real nice picture of that over the next couple nights. But Mars is moving away from the Pleiades, so be mindful that that is going to get further and further, but they're still relatively close if you're using like camera lenses and such, where you can get some really cool pictures and contrast of the blue and the orange in that shot. And if you're in dark skies, it'll make getting the Meteor Nebula, the dust around the Pleiades, much more visible and easier in that shot. So just an FYI, that's kind of a cool pairing that's going on right now. Like I said, the close approach was a couple days ago, but you can still get a nice image out of it. And if you're looking for Mars, just look for the Pleiades, and there you go. So that's it for planets. There's not, like I said, it's not really planet season anymore. The last several years and the next several years in the future, planet season for the northern hemisphere is probably going to be about fall, late summer to fall, and into the winter is when we're going to have most of the naked eye planets visible for the foreseeable future. Or if you're going to get up in the early morning, I will not be getting up in the early morning, but if you want to get up and start viewing the planets, check those out in the morning right now. Now, something for a little bit more convenient, the sun. Now, the sun is getting into another phase of maximum. Right now, it's coming out of solar minimum and going up into maximum. It's still several years away from when we hit solar max. We're still pretty low, but we are moving into there. The sun is a really dynamic object. It's a fun one to go out and observe with. I usually take out a little solar telescope every day just to see what's going on, 5-10 minutes, like, oh, that's cool. And it just kind of keeps you up to date with what's going on up there. But it's changing every day. It's one of those objects that there's really nothing like observing the sun because it's constantly changing. It's highly variable. So that's something that we're going to be wanted to keep a look on doing that right now. There was a really nice prominence earlier this week. Maybe it was last weekend. Big prominence kind of jetting off. It was actually one of the largest I've ever seen, but it's kind of cool to see. You can sketch, you can image, you can do all kinds of stuff with the sun. And with that being said, actually, let's just take a look at what's going on the sun right now. Now, I personally like to go on this website. This is the NSO, National Solar Observatory website, GONG, G-O-N-G 2. So you can go ahead and actually search GONG, G-O-N-G, solar, and it comes right up. And this is usually a up-to-date. There's several observatories that are posting images constantly about this. Let's check Sierra Tolo. So today there's actually a really nice prominence. There's some active regions up there right now. There's a filament and some other little prominences around there. Looks like we might have something coming around right over here. So the sun's a really cool one to see. If you want to see what's happening on the sun and keep up to date with it without going outside, or you want to see if there's something worth setting up, go to this website. This is what I like to use. It lets me know if it's worth dragging out the rest of the heavy-duty filters and hardware to actually capture some cool stuff. But this is what's going on in the sun today. It's kind of quiet, but there is some cool stuff up there. If you're like imaging the sun or sketching, there's some good prominences up right now that's worth probably busting out a telescope to go take a look at it. But that's pretty much it for the sun. Hopefully we'll get some more activity here soon. Like I said, it's constantly changing. It's a highly variable object. So there's some cool stuff that's up there. It's a little higher, sharper resolution. So yeah, there's something a little bit small up here. Filament, active region, prominence, 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 prominence. Nice big one over here. So something to take a look at if you want to do some solar observing. I saw a question here real quick just while we're on this. Are you guys still doing star parties? I joined back when Rona hit. Thank you very much. And no one was going out together because of... So the virtual star parties I'm hoping to do again here soon. We have a telescope out at a remote site now. I'm hoping that we could possibly in the future access that for all of that fun stuff. So yeah, come on over and we'll post about that when we start doing those again. We will need to work out some stuff. But yes, definitely we want to start doing the virtual star parties again. We find a lot of people enjoy them. So just keep an eye out for those. And we'll probably get back to doing that here soon. Probably not as often. I was doing it every other week, which the sky doesn't change enough to do it that much. So we'll probably do it maybe once a month or something like that. So yes, we'll be doing the virtual star parties here soon. Meteor showers. Unfortunately, there is nothing going on in March. I checked. There's no big meteor showers. There's no small meteor showers. So March, there's not much going on. Actually, there's nothing going on as far as meteor showers. But April has some stuff, and we'll be talking about that, of course, next month's webcast about what's up in the April skies. There are some April showers that were showers bring May flowers. Flowers are obviously not coming from a meteor shower, but there are enough stuff coming up in the coming months as far as meteor showers are concerned. So just keep an eye out on that. But yeah, there are no meteor showers this month. Now, I did have someone last month ask me about comets, and I should put something in comments. I remember this morning to talk about comets. This is what I use to check for comets. This is comet chasing in March. It's called cometchasing.skyhound.com. This gives a nice record of every comet that's worth taking a look at the moment. So this is something that would be on there. So definitely worth taking a look at. There's not many good visible comets right now. A lot of these are fairly faint. Look, you got one that's 11th magnitude. That's like at the limit of a 10-inch, 12-inch telescope. 11.8, 12.6, 10.9. Some of these are fairly faint. There's not a lot going on with them. Some of them aren't even visible in the northern hemisphere. But right now, there's no major comets actually visible right now. But there are some that are lining up, maybe visible naked eye in December 2021. So Comet Leonard, C2021A1 Leonard, that might be one to at least keep a record of for later in this year. Might be something cool to see. But if you want to keep up with comets and you want to know what's kind of cool to see at the moment, cometchasing.skyhound.com. I've used this for years, and the cool thing about some of this stuff is they give you all the details about each comet that they're feeling is interesting. But if you click on it, they also have finder charts that show you the position and direction that the comet's moving. So this is a really good, and it's printable. It's set for 8.5 by 11. They do a very nice job on this if you're trying to keep up with some of these comets for observing or imaging or whatever. But yeah, so that's some of the stuff as far as comets. And this is the website right up here that I like to use for that. So that's kind of the bit on comets. Nothing really to promote right now, but we'll probably start incorporating more of this in the monthly episodes, at least bringing up this page to see what's going on there. So yeah, nothing for meteor showers either. Really quick, because there's a comment in here. It says, you have no idea what biological contaminants may be on a meteorite. That is true. I have a big collection of meteorites. I have some meteorites that are that have been studied in labs. And yes, meteorites could bring all that cool stuff to Earth. We'll probably do an episode on meteorites here in the future. I'm trying to get that kind of worked out. So stay tuned for later in the year. We might be doing something like that. So, all right. So we're kind of cruising through today. There's just not a lot going on in the night skies as far as planets and meteor showers and all that fun stuff. However, deep sky has a ton of stuff going on. We are in a transition period. A lot of the objects we're going to talk about here really in the next section we've talked about before, but that's because they're highlight targets that I want to talk about. But there's also plenty of other cool stuff. I'll see if we can kind of spin off if we've got a little extra time. So, of course, the big one right now is the Pleiades, M45. This is naked eye visible even in light polluted locations. It's a great binocular object, so if you've got friends or family that want to get out and get involved in astronomy, a small set of binoculars is a very nice option for the Pleiades cluster. It's a great beginner astrophotography target. You can get it from the backyard. You can get it from a dark sky site. There's all kinds of cool stuff floating around with the Pleiades. And like I said earlier, the Pleiades is right next to Mars right now. So let's just, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. As obviously the month continues, Mars is going to move further away from the Pleiades, but it's still a great object. You can still get a couple hours of, if you're doing imaging, some exposure time, 8, 9. Probably get about an hour and a half or two early in the month, but by the time we get to the end of the month, by 8:30, it's pretty low in the sky. We're only talking about 28 degrees, so we're talking by 10 o'clock, 10:30, it's gonna be gone for most latitudes in the northern hemisphere. So March is probably going to be the end of the Pleiades season for now. So if you want to get the last views in, you want to get that pretty picture of the Pleiades, the next couple weeks, is especially now that we're moving into new moon over the next week, this is probably your last stitch effort to get a really nice shot of the Pleiades cluster right now. So, of course, the crown jewel of the winter season for the northern hemisphere is M42, the Orion Nebula. Very similar to the Pleiades. It's easily visible from the backyard, even in small telescopes. You can see some of the haze there. If you're going to get out to a dark sky site next weekend, even in a small telescope, the Orion Nebula is amazing. But if you've got some with a big Dob, or some big telescope, we're talking like 14-inch or bigger, it's awesome. If you have a chance to view in a 20-inch or bigger, it's amazing. So, the Orion Nebula, of course, is a great object. It is visible in binoculars. It's an excellent target for advanced and beginners from almost any location, and it's also great with narrowband filters. So, even when the moon comes up, you can start hitting that with narrowband filters. So, but let's jump into our sky map here. Here's the Orion Nebula right there. And by the end of the month, it's still, by the end of the month, it's got about an hour or so before it gets too low before you can shoot it. But, we're kind of at the edge of the season at the moment. So let's go to the next weekend for new moon. You can see it's by 9 o'clock. You're going to start losing it by about 10 o'clock, where it's going to get too low to really get some good stuff out of it. So these next 2 weeks or so is the time that if you're really interested in getting that awesome shot of the Orion Nebula, now's the time that you really want to do that. Or if you have a project you're working on with the Orion Nebula, you want to make sure that's buttoned up over the next 2 weeks or so, because we're going to be getting to the end of it, especially as the month comes to an end. There's not going to be a lot of time to get it once the sun goes down. The days are getting longer here in the northern hemisphere, so keep in mind that now is probably the last couple weeks that you've got to really finish up any project on the Orion constellation. And speaking of that, we have the next object up in Orion. That's, of course, the Horsehead IC434. Also in Orion, probably one of the most popular targets to shoot. This is really easy to do in small camera lenses. It's beautiful in a 200mm telephoto. Visually, you are going to need a H-beta filter, or at least a UHC from dark sky sites. 8-inch telescope, it's doable. Honestly, if you have a 16-inch telescope, it's even better. 16 or better, it becomes very easy to see. It's like a black thumbprint on black tablecloth. If you move the telescope side to side, that's the best way I've been able to observe the Horsehead. Once you get to 20-inch in aperture from a dark sky site, it becomes not that difficult. But the aid of an H-beta filter, minimum UHC, is helpful for it. Imaging, however, the Horsehead is really easy. It's an emission nebula, so there's a high amount of hydrogen in the region, so H-alpha filters will make this a walk in the park. This shot right here, this was taken with a little 6-inch Newtonian that I had laying around, and a hydrogen alpha filter that's only an hour worth of exposure time. I think it was like 12 5-minute images from my backyard with the moon up. So the Horsehead is easy to do in pretty much any size telescope if you're imaging. And the cameras are so good nowadays that you can get some really nice data on that. So, but it's excellent for beginners as well as experienced imagers. But just like Orion, right here off the bright star Alnitak in Orion's belt, that's where you have the Horsehead and the Flame Nebula. That this is kind of the last little bit. March is probably going to be it to get a nice image of the Horsehead before it starts getting too low and not really a great area to shoot. We are getting to spring, and think March 21st is the transition into spring officially here in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're going to get into galaxy season. It's already started. By around midnight, we're already kind of dominated by the springtime constellations. So March is really the last hurrah for any wintertime object. So try to get that in now if you can. So that's where the horse head's at. Good luck with it, and I hope you get your awesome shot. It's really a fun area to shoot. Now, just above Orion, we have the constellation of Monoceros, which hosts the Rosette Nebula. The Rosette Nebula is actually a large collection of NGC catalog numbers because there is an open star cluster in there, and a bunch of other stuff is actually marked as well. So if you're looking for it, just type in Rosette Nebula, it comes up. But there's a lot of different NGC designations for this object. Visibly, you want a wide field telescope. I like to use like a 4-inch refractor. If you've got like a UHC filter or an O3 filter, it works very well, bringing out a lot of the detail there. It's not going to be super bright, but it's a fun one to go after, especially if you're going to go out viewing next new moon next weekend. This would be a fun one to do visually. It's still in a good part of the sky in the early evening to catch. If you've got more aperture, it really helps, especially with those UHCs and O3 filters, but you're not going to get the whole thing. It's a very large object, so you may have to kind of move it around and observe it a little bit. Imaging-wise, let's see. Imaging-wise, this is a really easy one to shoot, too. It's very active in hydrogen. It's an H2 region, star-forming region here in the Milky Way. This is a good one to shoot, even from home with a hydrogen alpha filter. That's kind of how I like to do my imaging. I'm not big on going out to sites and lugging batteries and stuff like that. So I rely heavily on my narrowband filters for a lot of this stuff. This was taken from my backyard with my Esprit 100. This is a 16200 sensor that shot this Starlight SX46 camera. Big field of view. But if you've got something fast, like a hyperstar or a small refractor, this is a great target to go after. Just make sure you've got a big field of view to get all of it. But that's the Rosette Nebula. It looks great in Hubble palettes. There is some sulfur in there. There's some O3 in there. H-alpha, obviously, you can see here, is really abundant in there. But that's a great target to go after for imaging. And of course, if you want some nice color data on it, getting out to those dark sky sites is very, very helpful, capturing the Rosette Nebula. But the Rosette, being in Monoceros, is obviously just above Orion here, but it's a lot higher. So here's the Rosette, or part of the Rosette as far as this is concerned. But there's the Rosette. You can see it's actually quite a bit higher than Orion and the Horsehead, which are down here. So by the end of March, so the Rosette is pretty good for early evening all the way to the end of March. But again, it's going to set really early. By 10 o'clock, it's gone by the end of the month. So again, while this one does have more time, it's definitely something that is worth taking a shot at. As well. So give the Rosette a go. There's a couple other objects I want to talk about just while I have the star chart up, because I don't have shots of them at the moment. But if you're looking for something to image, one that's really fun here, find it really quick, M46, and right up here, this is in Canis Minor, I believe. M46 is a fun little open cluster, and the cool thing about it is there's a planetary nebula in the same vicinity, right? I think it's in front of it. I have to go back and look up my notes on that, but this is just on a real quick whim there. But the cool thing about M46 is it's an open cluster. I'm not that excited about open clusters, but the planetary nebula sits in the same line of sight as the cluster does. So that's kind of a cool one if you're looking to do some imaging, or if you've got like a 10 or 12 inch telescope. M46 is a fun one. I always forget about it until it's too late. But if you're looking for kind of a cool 2-for-1 deal, M46 is a great object to go after, both visually. It's going to be hard to see the planetary nebula in town. You are going to need some darker skies, but that's a fun object to do. I just wanted to make a real quick note of that because I always pan over it. And then, of course, another one, let me find that, is Thor's helmet. That's a cool nebula that I always forget about. It's not far from M46. Thor's helmet is a very cool object to photograph. It's a lot smaller than I think people realize. It's got a lot of blue in there, so it has that double ionized oxygen. So O3 filters are very good with this nebula, and it's got some hydrogen in there as well. This is actually a lot easier to do visually than a lot of people might think. If you have a 10 or 12 inch telescope, it's well within the grasp of those instruments. Adding a UHC or O3 into the light path will definitely help pull this out. Moderately dark skies always help, but moderately dark skies, this is actually visible. But that's a fun one to do as well. It's just one that I always forget about this time of year, and it's not far from the Pelican Nebula, which is right next door. So there's actually a couple things in this area. You have M46 over here, another cluster over here, got the Pelican, and of course right in the middle of all that is the Thor's Helmet Nebula. So some cool stuff right above Canis Majoris here, if you want to go check that out right before anything is wrapped up for the winter season. By the end of March, it's going to be done. And of course, if you are a nightscape photographer, time and time again, everyone's like, oh, it's winter, it's not the Milky Way season. Well, it's not the summer Milky Way season, but it is the winter Milky Way season. And the winter Milky Way is not looking at the core of the galaxy. It's nowhere near as bright, but there's a lot of very large, very complex hydrogen clouds in this region. So if you're going out next weekend, if you have like a star tracker and you want to do a wide Milky Way, winter Milky Way, there's a lot of really odd dark nebulas, hydrogen regions, all kinds of cool stuff in the winter Milky Way. So the Milky Way season is not just reserved for the summer. There's the winter Milky Way as well, and it's not to be forgotten because it's got a lot of very cool things in it. It's just not big and bright and sexy like the winter Milky or the summer Milky Way. You probably aren't going to get as many oohs and ahs from your Instagram crowd, but the winter Milky Way has tons of cool stuff in there. It might take some more exposure time, but it's definitely worth hitting with a wide angle lens if you're going out to a dark sky site. All right, so that kind of wraps up the winter stuff. Winter's pretty much done. By the end of March, we'll be officially into spring, and spring switches the game up quite a bit. The winter time, we're always talking about wide field of view, catching all this big nebulas and expanses of space up there, and then we completely flip everything on its head and we go right to galaxies. Long focal length, longer exposures, not really much narrowband work going on. And of course, in the visual world, that just means straight up aperture is what wins the galaxy game here. So, easiest to start with for this time of year is M81 and M82 in Ursa Major, or the Big Dipper. These can actually be seen as a pair from just moderately dark skies in a 50 millimeter finder scope. They look like little, fuzzies up there, but you can see them in a pair of binoculars. Obviously, bigger telescopes will drastically do more work on them, and dark skies is always nice to have too. But these are easy to do from the backyard as an imager. It's a good pair to work on if you're trying to understand how to process and work with galaxies, because they are bright, and working with a galaxy from an imaging standpoint is very different than from a nebula. So because you are working with visible light only, there's not a lot that the narrowband filters like HA03 and S2, they're not going to do much for you when it comes to galaxies. So when it comes to shooting galaxies, you really need to rely on just the sky being dark to some extent. Now, M81 right here in the center, M82 over here, there's a ton of other galaxies in this field. This is a great 2-for-1 pair. If you have a telescope that's like 1200, 1500 millimeter focal length with like a 30 something odd millimeter eyepiece, you can probably get both of them in the field of view together easily. If you want to see the spiral arms of M81, you really need dark transparent skies and probably a 12-inch, maybe a 10-inch and bigger in a nice dark sky will get you some really cool detail. This hydrogen region in 82, big telescopes. It still would be a challenge to see it. But for imaging, these are very easy ones to do. For the more advanced imagers, you have the Flux Nebula, which is all this nebulosity dust floating in that region. The whole area over in Ursa Major is filled with the Flux Nebula, or IFN, Integrated Flux Nebula is what's officially called, floating through this region. You need very dark skies, very transparent skies to bring this very delicate nebulosity out. It actually is easier with these new high QE cameras coming out, but dark skies all the way for this, and a very good luminance channel, like you can see here. Here's the luminance channel from that shot. You can see all the integrated Flux Nebula. But this is what I'm talking about with galaxies, especially bright galaxies, is a lot of time you're going to be shooting these regions and the cameras are going to start to overexpose the galaxies. So you're going to have to work on really understanding how to handle these brighter galaxies and how to process those galaxies in order to maintain the center details of them without blowing out the shot. So galaxies, there are some nebulas like Orion that'll teach you that too, but galaxies have a lot of delicate detail in them that you don't want to lose in there. So some cool stuff in there. So M81, M82, real quick, if you are shooting M82 and you want to get this red region in there, the red in your camera is going to pull that out. If you really want to pop that out a little bit more, do like an hour or two of hydrogen alpha. That'll dramatically help. That's what we did here to pull that detail out. That's one of the few objects that do well with an H-alpha filter for galaxies. But if you're shooting this region, do like an hour or two of hydrogen alpha and incorporate that into your red channel. It'll help pop out that H region, H2 regions coming off of the M82 cigar galaxy. And then a good luminance channel also helps really build the galaxy shots. Moving on, you have M51, the Whirlpool Galaxy. This is a great one. It's one of my favorites. I never get tired of it. It's fairly easy to do in a moderately dark sky. You can see it from most backyards. It's going to be faint, gray, fuzzy. You're probably not going to get a lot of the major detail in this galaxy from your backyard. But if you get out to dark skies and you've got like an 8-inch or bigger, even a 6-inch, 150 millimeter telescope, it'll really come out and look just like a picture does. It looks like the Whirlpool Galaxy. It's really neat to see. It is a face-on spiral. Larger telescopes, you'll start to see the dust on the companion here and the bridge between the two. Larger telescopes will show that. If you do have a friend out there who's got like a 20-inch or bigger Dob, have them throw that on this galaxy. It's awesome. We were at Texas Star Party, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, a while ago. Our team had a chance to look at this through a 30-inch Dob with an 8mm eyepiece in it, and it filled the field of view. It was awesome, and it just looked like it was etched into the field there. So very cool Galaxy. Good in most apertures, awesome in bigger apertures. And then, of course, if you're imaging, it's a great object to image. It's generally pretty easy from the backyard. You can get some nice images. And, of course, if you want a lot of that extended dust, a dark sky is really where you need to be for that. But it's not hard to get a nice, at least a nice presentable image. Like what I've got here, this is a basic image I did at an outreach event during LiveStack, where it's incorporating it live. There wasn't much to it. So you can get a nice image of the whirlpool without much effort, even from your backyard. You know, if you're not going anywhere and you're home next weekend and the skies are nice, wait till, middle of the evening. Like, let's go look at it right now. Okay. So what's up here? It's in Canis Venactices, down here under the under Alcade in the Big Dipper handle, right there. Well, it won't get onto where I want it, but roughly right there. By 9 o'clock, that thing is plenty high enough to get. And if you want exposure time, you can go all night on M81 or M51 right now. You can get all that exposure time. You can make a nice image of M51 right now in one night because of how much time you could spend on it over the next several weeks. And we're just getting to the beginning of that season. So very good target to shoot with right now. And of course, just to finish it off, I know we talked about it last month, but the Leo Triplet, 3 galaxies in one. You have 63 galaxies in one field. 65, 66, and NGC 3628. These are excellent targets. This is probably going to come up in the next several months. Webcast, it's going to be one of the easier sets of galaxies to go after. Visually, you might need a moderately dark sky to get 65 and 66. NGC 3628 over here is a little bit more challenging visually. Darker skies, larger aperture, of course, always helps with that. Imaging-wise, much easier to do. Again, 3628 is going to be the harder of the trio. There is this really cool, it has like a tail that comes off of it in really long exposures. That's very faint and hard to do. But there are some really interesting details to pull out of this field if you want to go ahead and do that. So that's a great set of objects moving into the springtime for galaxies and stuff like that. So definitely worth it. There's a lot of really cool galaxies that are coming up in the April What's Up webcast. We're probably going to dig into all of those. There's some really fun, easy ones that you want to do, and then there's some really off-the-wall ones that I really like that I'm going to dig up as well. But we'll talk about that next month. The April Night Skies episode at the beginning of April, we'll be doing that. So, but yes, March is pretty much the end of winter. Well, it is officially the end of winter. So if you want to get those last little bits of wintertime objects in, either viewing or imaging, this next week or two is really going to be it for you. So go on out. New moon is next weekend. Go on out, get that done, and have fun with it, and then prepare to bust out the long focal length, high resolution combos because it's galaxy season, and that's what they are going to rely on. So that is pretty much what we're getting ready for. So that's pretty much the end of it for today. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Again, if you like what we do here, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. You can email us at support@skywatcherusa.com and title it What's Up if it has anything to do with the What's Up webcast. That makes us keep an eye out for those emails. We'd love to hear from you. Next week, we're talking about the SkyMax Maxitov series. We're going to talk about Maxitov Cassegrains, Maxitov Newtonian that we've got. So we're going to do an overview on that whole collection of telescopes there. We'll tell a little bit about the specs, some recommended accessories, what we recommend for each kind of model that we've got. That's what we're doing next week. So definitely come in and join us for that. And then, of course, if you like your Skywatcher equipment, you want swag to go along with it, we do have our skywatcher.threadless.com swag store. These are all of our shirts. We are going to be adding some more shirts in the future. The cool thing about these is you can go in and you can kind of pick what color you want. These are actually really soft shirts, actually. I've had some done for my outreach program as well. Threadless does a very nice job with their stuff. There's hoodies in there, I think, too. But yeah, so that is our Threadless, skywatcher.threadless.com swag store if you want to pick something up for that. We've got stuff over there. So all kinds of fun junk for us. So like I said, end of the episode. If you guys have questions, I'd be happy to answer them right now. Next week is our SkyMax series overview. So if you want to know more about our Max, the 90, 102, 127, 150, 180, and the 190 Mac Newt, we're going to be talking about those in next week's episode. And then, of course, if you missed anything, if you want to go back and watch any episodes, they are recorded on our Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. Every single episode is up there right now, and obviously will remain up there. So if there's something you want to learn about, everything is still there. We have our interview with Don Pettit from last week. We've got solar filters, imaging filters, all kinds of cool stuff up there. So, and then we will be posting probably the next quarter worth of episodes on our YouTube channel here shortly. So keep an eye out for that. We got all kinds of cool stuff. End of this month, we're talking to our friends at Skies Away for remote observatories. Be learning some about that. In April, we're going to have obviously our guest speaker, our surprise guest speaker is going to be on for that. And then we've got some new episodes coming up in April. And unfortunately, I can't remember all of them right now. But we've got some good stuff. Running into May, we have Jeff Hall, the director of Lowell Observatory, is going to be on as our special guest. So we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up in the next couple months as well. So just keep on, and we'll be happy to have you there. I don't see any questions, so if that's pretty much it, I'm going to wrap this episode up a little bit early. Again, thank you so much for joining us on your Friday mornings. I hope all of you are well. Please have a good weekend. I hope you have clear skies, and go out and enjoy the night sky or the sun. Just be safe about it. But be safe, clear skies to everyone, and we will see you guys next week for our SkyMax series. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day and clear skies.